I'm Rob from Barefoot Gaming, and this is the Pixel Ripped 1989 Virtual Reality Review. So what is Pixel Ripped 1989? Well, you play as a video game obsessed girl named Nicola, and you have to save the world, like the real world, from an evil goblin who calls himself the Cyblin Lord, using your trusty Gear Kid, and I'm air quoting that, as he is bringing video game baddies into the real world. This is a seated virtual reality game, so this works on the HTC Vive, the Oculus Rift, and all the Windows mixed reality sets. It supports tracked controllers as well as a gamepad, and the game itself consists of 4 chapters, or 4 levels, I guess, however you want to call it, because there's multiple checkpoints within. Now, to give you an example, one of the levels would have you've probably seen it in the trailer, in fact I might be playing the trailer over top of this, where you're sitting in a classroom and you've got your, I'm just going to call it a Game Boy, right? You're holding your little black and white portable device, and you have to beat levels without the teacher catching you doing so. So this is a game within a game within a game. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but you do have to be aware of what's happening around you in your environment, as well as what's happening in the game itself. So in one example, like in chapter 1, like I said, you've got the classroom, and another would be on a playground where you use your controller to aim at the bad guys, and a third option would be you use like a gaming watch to play on a back wall behind, a principal type thing. So I'm gonna avoid spoilers, I'm not gonna get too much into this, but just to give you some ideas of how the game sits. Now, something that I don't think everyone will understand is this game isn't just about playing the game itself, like as in the handheld game. This game is half playing the handheld game and half dealing with what is happening all around you in your VR space. Aside from that, I think we're ready to review this game. We'll list some pros, list some cons, and hopefully we'll hit all the points needed. Starting with pros, this game has high production values. The game looks really good. The game that you're playing itself, well, that just looks like what it's supposed to look like. A 8-bit, old school, classic handheld black and white game. But what's happening all around you, the stages in between, again, done very, very well. And because you spend so much time platforming, the gameplay in the platforming is also done very well. So you start as a square, and then you get energy cubes as you progress, and it'll make you like a bigger square, and then you're a person, and then you look like a fancier person. So you kind of build your character up, and then when you get hit, you go back down to a level prior. So the gameplay itself in the platforming is done very well. Another pro I'm gonna list is there are a lot of nods to some of the classics. So everything from Mega Man to Battletoads to Ghosts and Goblins. It just jumps all over the place while you're inside, and that's cool. It keeps it kind of fresh. I mean, they are all still primarily platformers, but if you've played any of the classics, you will definitely recognize the nods to the old games. And on top of that, there are hidden cartridges you can go back to try to find if you don't find them all in the first playthrough, and there are also cheat codes. So that would be the pros. Let's talk about some of the cons, because the game does a lot of stuff right, but it also misses in some areas. Now, the distraction bits is the first one I'm going to talk about as a con. It doesn't really add to the gameplay. I get what they were going for, and the environment is really neat, but all you have to do to distract the teacher or distract something is you stare at a straw for firing spitballs, and you look around the room, you fire at something that is either glowing or sparkling. That will distract the teacher for, 45 seconds, at which point you can play your game. Find a safe spot before that time is up, because the game doesn't make you run non-stop, and then you just repeat. And it won't let you do the same one over and over, but there's so many different bits and pieces in the environment, it isn't really a challenge. It doesn't really add to gameplay. I guess it's pretty, but I found it more annoying than actually helping out. The second thing I'm going to talk about as a con is exclusively to the Vive. Now, you can use your wireless controllers for this game. You can use the Rift controller, worked pretty well. The mixed reality controller worked pretty well as well. The Vive controller worked for garbage. Now, using the trackpad to actually do your left and right and jump and etc., which I should probably talk about. There aren't a lot of buttons in this game. You've got 2 really. You've got a jump and you've got shoot. And if you hold in your shoot, that's like a run. So think of old Super Mario Brothers. That's the gaming configuration for buttons. But back to the Vive, there are certain levels that you can't beat. Like it doesn't respond fast enough. And it's not sliding, it's not touch capacitive, all it is you have to click your trackpad in that direction. And I honestly thought maybe I would blast through this thing all the way through on the Vive just to say at least it's doable, I couldn't do it. I gave up. So no matter which system you're going to play this on, because it's seated, and because the wireless controllers don't really add anything to the game, if you hold your hands up, for example, it doesn't line up with where your hands are, just your entire controller moves. So I found it to be the most fun to just play with I use an Xbox One controller, but any kind of gamepad would be my recommendation there. Next con is the difficulty ramps up like a son of a gun. As you get near the end, it is infuriating, and not really in a fun kind of infuriating, at least not for me. I like being challenged in platformers, that's all cool, but there isn't really a gradual curve on this. They just ramp it up, and your end boss, it's really, really difficult. I wish they would have eased up a little bit on that, but that being said, the game is only 3 hours long, so I kind of have to list that as a con. Based on the price, $29 Canadian, 3 hours, I'm looking at almost $10 Canadian an hour, obviously cheaper if you can get it on sale. And I mean, if you're picking it up in the States, or if your currency is worth more than ours, which isn't that difficult, then again, you'll be able to get it for a better price. Something to keep in mind. Most of the gameplay is black and white platforming, right? So when you're actually playing a game, it's Game Boy style. It's done a little bit better. The graphics look better than the old school Game Boy because the brightness and stuff is better. So you have to be okay with that. And the last con I'm going to list is the fact that sometimes you're playing not on your controller, you're playing in the background, and where you're seated isn't a fantastic place to sit to see what's going on. That's a minor quibble because it's always doable. They never like purposefully full out block you, but it's a little inconvenient. That's the only thing I'm gonna say. In the end, I'm gonna have to score this, and I know it's gonna sound like I hit it with a lot of negatives, because there are, but I enjoyed going back to it. I put this game down at one point out of frustration, and I looked forward to coming back to it, and that means a lot to me. I wish they had done more, especially based on the year 1989. I Googled it, and I mean the Sega Genesis, the Nintendo, lots of video game systems were out. They didn't touch on really any of that. I mean, you've got the Nintendo glove on your character while you're playing. You can tell she's a big fan. The environments are strewn with like copies of like EGM, or obviously they weren't EGM, but game magazines of the day type thing. So that's all very cool. I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5, 70%. It's expensive for how long it is. And really, when you break it down to mostly just playing a Game Boy in VR, but with a beautiful environment all around you, and it's more than that. That does take away from what this game delivers. That's it. That's my score. 70% is what that works out to. If in the future there is, Pixel Ripped 1991, maybe we can play some more Genesis style games, more, make it a little bit fancier. Who knows what they have planned? But that's it. That's for the review for Pixel Ripped 1989. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more stuff. Well, you can see more stuff if you don't subscribe, but subscribe if you want to find out when we post this stuff. Like, comment. I love hearing from you, and I will talk to you again real soon. See ya.